Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Alternatively. Today we're going to be talking about 8 things that you need to consider before you start a business. Now most of these points can apply to service businesses as well, but today I'm going to be specifically talking about product businesses because that is kind of my specialty at the moment. So for a little background on me and where I'm at as far as my business journey. On November 1st, 2024, I opened my very first product business, selling all natural hairstyling and grooming products on Etsy. And I called it Locust and Honey. Since its founding, it has seen over 200 sales and generated over $4,000 in revenue across both Etsy and my website at the time that this video was made. The world of products was a completely new world to me. I had watched my parents build multiple successful service businesses, and I myself went on to work in electrical for 3 years, furthering the service experience. However, selling products was uncharted territory for me, and it took me a while to familiarize myself with this new realm. These past 9 months have been a journey of both trial and error. Thunder. And today I want to share with you 8 things that I believe every aspiring entrepreneur needs to consider before they start their first business. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Number 1. Is what you're selling able to be profitable without selling a million units? While this may sound simple, I've seen a lot of people who have, especially on Etsy, have started businesses selling very, very cheap things like stickers or cards or something like that, where they're selling things at like $1 or $2 per individual unit. And while there have certainly been success stories, I've seen a lot of people also experience burnout because they're having to churn out a lot of these orders. And they're not getting really a return on their time, and so they're in a lot of ways just breaking even. And when you first start out, you don't have that customer base that's willing to continue to feed the business for you, and initially you're trying to do a lot of marketing to get people on board in the first place, and that takes a lot of time in and of itself. And if you're going long seasons without making profit, it's a really easy way to burn out. And so if you are going to sell a low budget item, you need to make sure to price it fairly but accordingly at the same time. Like, know its value and know how much people are going to be willing to pay for it, because you don't want to be working for pennies, because that's the easiest way for a business to fail. I would recommend that at least with your main product, best case scenario, all your products, that they are at least over $10. Obviously that depends on what you're selling, but try to look for something that people will be willing to pay at least $10 for. That way you're not having to sell 50 products before you start to make a profit on something. As a little side note, like point 1.5, also make sure to look how much you're spending on a product versus how much you're charging for it, because you don't want to be selling the product at the price that you're having to pay for the materials, because again, obvious, but there's a lot of people who don't take the time to look at those numbers, and they can end up working for nothing. So just because your revenue is high does not mean that your profit is high. So that's why you have to constantly be aware of how much you're spending on the business, or else you could easily go under. So the second thing you need to consider before opening a product business is, are you passionate about this product? So like me, for example, when I first started Locust and Honey, it was not something that I had planned on getting into business with. I had actually been using pomades and hairstyling products, but for a long time I had been buying stuff off of Amazon. And just in the past year or two, I've really started to look into ingredients in products and the things that they can do to your hair, because I started to notice, at least with me, that I started to have really bad problems, that this was a pain point that I had in my life, and I was like, well, I want to fix it. And so I went online and I looked all over for all natural products. I couldn't find anything that I was comfortable with, and so I was like, you know what, hey, I'm just gonna make my own. I'm sure I'm capable of finding something. And so I ended up finding a recipe on the internet and ended up making it. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, and so I went back, tweaked it, got it just how I liked, and then I actually ended up with a product that I loved more than the product that I had before, and it was all organic, all natural, and it made my hair feel healthy. And so after I had been using it for a little bit, I was like, you know what, this is a pretty good product. I wonder if other people would benefit from actually having access to something like this, especially because I couldn't find it myself. And so I decided to list it on Etsy. And it turned out that there were a lot of people who wanted it. But all that to say, it all stemmed from a single pain point that I experienced. And so it was something that I was passionate about because I was directly affected by it. I will also be able to help people better with a product that I know and actually use myself because I use it. A great conversation starter about your product is how it was made in the first place, how you were directly affected. And so the customer is able to relate to you a lot more because they're feeling the same pain points. Or on the other hand, if you have a product that you're making simply because it's in style or in season or something like that, and you're making it strictly for somebody else and something that you have no interest in, that can definitely work, and there's plenty of people that profit from it. So don't take it as like, hey, this is like a terrible idea, you should never do anything that you don't directly use. But I feel like you have a disadvantage because you're not able to relate as much with that customer base, and you'll also find that it's harder to market the product because you don't know the people who need it the most. Number 3 on my list for things that you need to know before starting a product business: are you willing to play the long game and go long periods of time seeing little to even no progress? Building a business is difficult work, and that's something I've learned the hard way. There are a lot of things that go into a product business, like, having the idea, creating the product, making sure that people like the product, building a website, marketing. There's all of these facets to building a business that you will sink a lot of time into. And in many cases, especially at the very beginning, you will do all that work, and unless you have some gigantic following at the very beginning, it'll be a very small, minute amount of people who are actually jumping on board. And if you're not prepared for that, if you think that you're going to build this big thing and then post it and everybody in the world's going to buy it, you're going to be very discouraged when it ends up not being that way. And like everything, there are like freak cases where people do have that to where they just break free from the very beginning. But in a lot of cases, it is a very, very slow and tedious process. And that's the road a lot of entrepreneurs will have to take. And you have to be prepared for that. I forget where I heard it, but there was somebody who I was listening to who said that a business only fails when the owner gives up. And so that's given me a lot of motivation to keep going with my business. Even though I'm not seeing, 100,000 sales and, have like multiple warehouses in my first 9 months. And unfortunately, a lot of social media will discourage you because you will see the end results of people, but you're not able to see that progression of growth. And so your mind automatically goes to, oh, they just ended up this way, like they started big. But you don't see like the 10, 15, 20 years of just constantly trying to get this ball rolling. And you only see the fruit of their labor. And that can be something also that can discourage you and detour you from pursuing your business. So do not be discouraged if you go month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, or even 2 years without even seeing like a big exponential amount of growth. It takes time to build a business, but as long as you know that you have a good idea and you're passionate about the product and you're willing to put in the work, things eventually will begin to roll. Instead of focusing on the things that you can't control, like revenue and profit and customers, focus on the things that you can. Things like your skill set. Invest in skills like marketing, sales, website building, even starting a YouTube channel to promote your product. All of those things you can control. And I personally believe if you keep working on yourself and keep working on building your skill set, that eventually your business will take off. Point number 4. What platform will you be selling your products on? Will you be selling it on Etsy? Will you be selling it on Amazon? What about your own website? This is obviously something that you need to know in order to sell your products in the first place. Each of these platforms have their pros and cons, including your own website. There are plenty of videos online that you can watch on comparisons. You're just gonna have to do your own research and see what would work best for you. I decided, as I said earlier, to start on Etsy because it already had a customer base. It was very easy setup, and it was something that I was comfortable with. Now, just because you choose a platform does not mean at all that you have to stay on that platform. Again, like I said before, after Etsy, I then created my own website using Wix. And then about a month ago, I just launched one of my best-selling products on Amazon. And speaking of Amazon, I am running a 50% off sale right now. Because we are looking for people to try out the product and give it a review on Amazon. I'm trying to build the credibility there. So I will leave the link down in the description if you want to go check it out. It's our best-selling pomade, the classic. It gives your hair a low to medium hold. It's made with all organic and natural ingredients. And it's all made by me here in the United States. If you'd like to style without all the nasty side effects of chemicals and synthetics, and also support the channel, be sure to pick one up. Also, another thing that I will say about platforms is You need to make sure that you know their terms of service, their policies, and most importantly, their fees, because fees do vary and that can really cut into your profit, and it'll be a rude awakening if you get onto a platform, upload everything, get everybody excited for the product, and then people start buying and then you realize that all of your profit is going to the platform rather than into your bank account. Number 5 on the list is, can you make the product at home? Or will you need a manufacturer to make that product for you? Again, this is all preference based. There's pros and cons to both. Having a manufacturer means that you don't have to worry about keeping things in stock. You don't have to worry about making the products or storing the materials in your home. But at the same time, it is a lot more expensive. You also don't have full control of how the product turns out. I decided personally to, especially at the beginning, just make my own products. I'm pretty handy with things like Canva, so I made my own logos. I also sourced all of my materials on Amazon. So especially at the beginning, when I'm not getting an overwhelmingly large amount of orders coming through, I can manage a lot of that stuff myself, and I'm not having to pay a warehouse to store my items or pay higher prices for items in bulk, because a lot of manufacturers are going to have a minimum limit on how much you have to order in order to make it profitable for them. But again, can't go wrong with either way. You just need to look at it for yourself and see which one will work for your product. Number 6, and one of the more important ones, and one that I am still learning to this day, is how will you market your products? Are you going to do paid ads? Are you going to do organic content, locals, farmers markets, or events? This is very important because you can have the most perfect product in the world, but if you don't have a way to reach the people that you're trying to sell it to, nobody's going to buy it because nobody knows about it. Believe it or not, I was actually under the delusion that if you make a really good product, people will just flock in themselves. It'll fly off the shelves. Boy, was I sorely wrong. There probably is that customer base that will be willing to throw money at your product. But the question is, how are you going to reach them? Personally, I have tried all 3 that I mentioned. There are more, but those are the big main ones. And I'll go over the 3 briefly and kind of my experience with them. So first of all, paid ads. I've tried to do paid ads. I've tried Meta ads. I've tried Google ads, Etsy ads. I have yet to try Amazon ads, but I'm going to do that very soon since I've launched there. And I will say that, at least for me, I know that there's a lot of people that find value from it, but for me personally, you spend a lot more than you make back. And maybe I'm doing something wrong, but it appears to me that you have to spend a lot more than I'm willing to at the moment in order to see any sort of real results. I know Facebook kept begging me to up the limit, and I was like, no, I'm not spending any more than that. Also, another problem with ads these days, especially on social media, is there is a lot of bots, like a ton of bots, and I'm sure that you're aware of it here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. There's a lot of fake accounts run by nothing but little digital entities. And unfortunately, a lot of them have been actually uploaded by the platforms themselves. They don't say this directly, but from me running ads for so long, I personally think it's a way to get clicks on the ads, because that's how you pay for them. You pay for it per click that you get on the ad. You can also pay per views as well, but most of the time you're going to be paying per click. And so I noticed that my click rate was very, very high, but right when they would go to the website or whatever platform I had the potential customers going to, they would instantly vanish. Not because the marketing wasn't good or not because the product wasn't good, but because a lot of those clicks were coming from nothing but bots. So you're spending a lot of money on people that are never going to actually buy from your platform. And so I decided not to support that anymore. I don't do Facebook ads or Instagram ads. I'm starting to lean back more into doing organic content. It is a lot more work, and you have to have a lot more creativity to constantly pump out content. And just for the record, I do not have any personal Instagram or Facebook accounts. I strictly have accounts on those platforms for my business, because I've said before, I don't believe in having social media, but that's just a personal conviction. But for you guys who have been here a while, I know that that would kind of be like he's got social media? So no, it's only for the business. And then lastly, markets. I found that markets are very, very profitable. I started out with one. I do it every Friday, and just meeting people in person and talking to your customers face to face, being able to discuss your product with them, and then being able to actually recognize you as a person instead of just a website, I have noticed really, really is beneficial to building relationships with your customer base. Most of my repeat customers come from the market. just because they know me, they like the product. And it's also just good for me to be able to get out and actually talk to people instead of seeing people more as like numbers on like analytics and stuff like that. I personally, coming from a service background, like having one-on-one conversations with people and just building those relationships. And those are the people that are going to actually grow your business in the long run. But again, like I said, with everything else, any of those three will work. They're different battles. I would just recommend you know which one you're going to do before you actually start developing the business. Number 7, another very, very huge one that a lot of businesses miss. I've seen so many businesses fail or really maim themselves by not taking this into consideration. And that is, are you willing to deal with people in a godly way, for better or for worse? I have personally found that customer service is absolute key to building and sustaining a business. I can't tell you how many people that I've actually had buy from me or be repeat customers, not necessarily because they think the product's the greatest product in the world, but simply because they love the way that they're treated when they do business with me. They know that they're going to be treated well. They know that I will be there to answer any questions that they ever have about the product or any concerns that they have. They know that I'm going to ship out to them in a timely manner. They know that if they have any issues, they can come to me and I will help them the best that they can and make sure that they're satisfied. And a lot of these are simple things. It's not like you're having to like obey their every wish, like bow down to them pretty much, but it's just being a kind person and putting yourself in their shoes, saying, hey, I bought this product. How would I like to be treated if I was the purchaser? It's a very rare occurrence, but I've even had people who, when they have gotten the product, they've been very disappointed and they've reached out to me not knowing how to use the product or being frustrated because that's not what they thought it was. I treated them very, very kindly. If it was a wrong on my end, I will instantly apologize for it and make it right. A lot of times, things can be resolved from simply having patience and understanding. I had a guy one time, actually very recently, who had bought one of my pomades. He bought the vintage, which is a wax, and most people know that waxes are very, very hard. You actually have to scrape it with the back of your fingernail. Well, he wasn't aware of it, and so when he got it, he actually messaged me and said, why is this so hard? I think you gave me a one with a defect. And so I kindly explained it to him how waxes work, and that I was also sorry because I did not put the instructions on the actual listing itself. And so I told him that I would. So he reached out to me the next day and he was still very frustrated, mostly because he was not listening to what I was saying, like of how to use it. He wasn't quite understanding. And so again, I reached back out to him and said, hey, again, this is how you're supposed to use it. These are how waxes work. I've had plenty of people buy it before and they've loved it. And if you follow the steps that I sent you before and will reiterate now, then I'm sure that you will love the product. I thought that if he comes back again and says he's frustrated with it, I'll just give him a refund for it and then we'll just call it even. Because at the end of the day, I want people who buy it to be happy with their purchase. And if they're not happy with it, then I'm not happy with it. And I would just rather part ways on a good note. So he ended up reaching out to me about an hour later saying, everything's fine. I tried it the way that you said. It worked perfectly. And he says, I love it. And so right after that, he left a 5-star review. And so something that could have easily turned into a big rigmarole where I get a 1-star review, have a customer who's telling everybody that they don't buy from this person because they're no help and they're terrible and everything like that, turned into somebody who's now an advocate for the business and who will probably buy for years to come simply by being patient and trying to understand the other person. There's only been one time where I've had to give a refund to a customer, and that will happen. That's just something that happens in business. Don't take it personally. Don't take it that your product is terrible and that people hate it. It's kind of like YouTube here. You'll have an overwhelmingly amount of positive comments and people liking the video, but that one comment that's like very negative or just ugly is the thing that you constantly think about. Know that those things will happen, but in most cases, you will be able to prevent them simply by being patient and being godly and being understanding of the customer that's trying to support you. And last but certainly not least, let's talk about mindset. You have to make sure that you have the right mindset when going into business. A lot of the gurus, especially on YouTube and on Instagram and everything, will make you think that you have to make millions in order to be successful. Maybe that works for them, but at least for me personally, I'm looking to make a living, not a killing. So my number one goal as a Christian is to glorify God. And so I want to make sure that everything that I do is glorifying to Him. I don't want to overcharge people. I don't want to give people a crummy product just so that I can save pennies. And I also don't want to spend every waking hour trying to build this business. Building a business is very important. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't, and you wouldn't be watching it if it wasn't. But it's also not the only facet of life that we have to focus on. There are many other things, many even more beautiful things than building a business. Building a business is kind of just there to sustain the things that we already have, like supporting a family, or being able to help friends when they need it, to be able to afford a property if you haven't moved out yet, like myself. All of those things are very good things, but you don't need millions in order to have them. So just make sure that your heart is right in knowing that a business is a means by which you feed the other facets of your life, and that it's not your life itself. Your life is not business. You are to work for a living, not live to work. And lastly, a little bonus tip, especially for my Christian brothers and sisters, is to trust in the Lord. That is something that He has taught me the hard way, because I'm very stubborn and I think that I can take it all on myself. But recently, God has shown me that I need to rely a lot more on Him, and that I can water and I can plant the seed, but only He can bring the rain, which brings growth. And so I think this ties back into the previous point, is make sure that your heart's in the right place and that you're relying on Him to bring your daily bread, and know that you can do nothing apart from Him. So make sure that you are living faithfully to Him, make sure that you are being obedient, and make sure to glorify Him in all that your hands find to do. But I believe if you follow all 9 of those steps before you start your business, that you will be leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. That if you continue to work on it and continue to work at it, that in the end you will end up with a successful business. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and join our small community. Hit the subscribe button. But we'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.